All right, so last week we got a look at the House Republicans' big, beautiful bill, their draft of it, their version of it. And it contained a provision that would prevent federal trial courts from finding any member of the Trump administration or any part of the executive branch in contempt of court, which is dumb and stupid and overreaching, and it conflicts with separation of powers. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. But more importantly, Senate Republican Majority Leader John Thune said that he is not going to overrule the Senate parliamentarian when it comes to this bill and the version of it that's going to make its way through the Senate. Now, this bill is being passed through the Senate under a process called reconciliation, meaning that for once a year for budget bills, they can pass a budget bill and not have to worry about getting 60 votes. They don't have to, they're not constrained by the filibuster or cloture or any of that stuff. They do not have to get 60 votes. They can pass this bill with a simple majority. The caveat is, the requirement is that every provision of the bill has to be budgetary. Well, this provision in the House bill that would, presume to restrict the abilities of federal trial courts has absolutely nothing to do with the budget. And so it's going to get kicked out of the bill by the Senate parliamentarian. The Senate parliamentarian is the one who, interprets and applies the rules, especially as it relates to something like reconciliation. They have to be pretty strict about that. And John Thune is like, I'm not going to overrule the Senate parliamentarian. So if the Senate parliamentarian carves out that section of the House's version of the bill and said that's out because it's not budgetary and you don't get to pass that provision during the reconciliation process, John Thune has stated publicly now that he's not going to overrule that decision by the Senate parliamentarian. And I don't know what other provisions there are in this bill that are not budgetary. Knowing the House Republicans, I'm sure there are several, because the House Republicans are insane. And they don't give a shit about things like rules. But, I always thought that provision was stupid. I knew it was non-budgetary. I knew it was not going to get through the Senate. And even if it did, it would have been immediately challenged in court and probably successfully. But it's not like the bill's not bad enough without that in there. I mean, Mike Johnson and Russ Vought from Office of Management and Budget were on the Sunday morning shows yesterday, just straight up fucking lying and saying that it doesn't contain any cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. It contains like 1.7 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. So they're just fucking lying to Republican voters now. And fortunately for them, the MAGA base is dumb and gullible enough to believe them when they say things like that, despite all empirical evidence to the contrary. So, whatever. Another day.